Excuse me.
Where is my statue? Where is my statue? I demand a statue.
Seth, if I could just get a reaction from the message you just received from Sting.
I think you got your reaction, Renee.
A reaction? You want a reaction of a message from Sting? I should have finished Sting when I had the chance at WrestleMania, but I didn't. So now we're in this problem. So the Sting wants a match with the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. That's what he wants, right? He wants Seth Rollins. Well, guess what? Be careful what you wish for, Sting, because now he's got it. At Night of Champions, Sting wants Seth Rollins. Sting is going to get Seth Rollins. He is going to get every single bit of Seth Rollins. And he's going to regret the day that he asked for this. You understand me? Finish this.
I'm going to finish
what
him.
I did.
This was my night. Night of Champions. I'm going to finish him. Sting, be careful what you wish for. I'm going to finish you.
I had to play the WCW one. This never gets old. Welcome back, everybody. Pro Wrestling Experience here on ChicagoLandSportsRadio.com. 312-564-7375 is the number to join. Josh Lopez here to talk all things professional wrestling. We're here till 2 p.m. Eastern. Glad to welcome our first guest here on the show. He's obviously seen him almost every single night on SportsCenter, and also the host of Fantasy Football Now on ESPN2. And just like all of us, he's a big wrestling fan. His name is Robert Flores. Give him a follow at Twitter at RoFlowESPN. Robert, Josh Lopez, glad to get to talk to you for the first time, and welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Josh.
No problem. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, I seen you behind the commentary table at SummerSlam. Let's get this out of the way. What was your thoughts on the show getting to attend it in person?
I loved it. I feel for them in one respect. They started at obviously 7 o'clock Eastern, so it's a 4-hour show. So that is a long time to keep your audience sort of entertained and engaged and enthused. But I thought they did. I thought they did a really good job. The Lesnar Undertaker finish. I was a little torn on how that ending played out, but I thought all in all the show was outstanding.
Do you think this is a model that's going to happen as the years go by with SummerSlam, or do you think they'll go back to 3 hours?
I don't know. I think it's just. I think if I were them, and of course, look, they're more intimately involved than what I am. But as a fan, I think it just kind of depends on how the storylines play out. I mean, if you have the talent and the performers, and more importantly, the angles to accommodate a 4-hour-long show, then by all means. But if you feel like you're forcing it, then 3 hours is also fine. So I think it just depends on what the circumstances are.
Now, WrestleMania is going to be in Dallas. You were born in Houston, right, Robert?
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. So, just as a fellow Texan, give your thoughts about how WrestleMania may be the biggest ever, and it's going to be in your state.
Well, look, first of all, Cowboy Stadium, or whatever the heck they're calling it now. I mean, it's a massive, massive building. So it's going to rival any sort of WWE record. I mean, I guess the existing record is what they did at the old Silverdome for WrestleMania 3. I guess that still stands. So I think that they're going to have some pressure to fill that building up. So they're going to have to come up with some interesting storylines, some interesting performers. I'm sure they would love to get Ronda Rousey involved and sort of continue what they started in the last WrestleMania. But look, there is so many great wrestling fans in the state of Texas, and there's so many so many great memories of previous wrestling shows that have happened in and around that state. So I think it's a great place for the next WrestleMania.
Robert Flores here on Live on the Pro Wrestling Experience on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. We promote the good and the positivity in the world of wrestling. Robert, obviously a lot of people know you from SportsCenter fame and, of course, the show Fantasy Football Now. And and we all know you're a wrestling fan, but I'd like to get to know what got you hooked into wrestling and why you continue to go to shows today. I heard you in other interviews, and you're a fan of the NWA and Paul Bosch wrestling. Tell us a little bit about your story as a wrestling fan.
Well, I mean, you hit on it right there. I grew up in Houston, and my grandfather watched it, and I would go to his house, spend the night on Saturday night, and wake up Sunday morning and watch Houston wrestling on the old Channel 39. So it was something that I was watching when I was a little kid, and I've watched it since. I mean, there's been times where I kind of fall out of it a little bit, but it's something that I've always enjoyed. I get a big kick out of it. I like bringing my sons to it. My oldest son is away at school, so it's my youngest son now. So I like getting a chance to kind of expose him to the product, if you will, and and I also like the guys. I mean, I've had a chance to meet some and been lucky enough to get to know some of the guys, the commentators, and the people in the business, and I have a great respect for it. You know, people say, well, it's fake, it's scripted, whatever you want to call it. I mean, look, it's still, these guys are tremendous athletes. They don't have an off season, so I have a great deal of respect for what they do.
Now, we have Steen come back to Raw this past Monday night. What was your thoughts on this segment and Raw overall this past Monday night?
You know, I think you could make the case that that Raw was every bit as good, if not better, than SummerSlam. I mean, there were so many great moments, so many surprises. The Sting segment, I mean, you played that WCW Sting entrance, and I think that's one of arguably the top 5 gimmicks of all time in professional wrestling. I mean, that crow gimmick that he had back in the day was just amazing. And, you know, the only thing that kind of, you know, gives me pause is that, you know, I think Sting came to the WWE probably about 10 years too late. And, you know, he was such a great performer. I would have loved to have seen him in his prime, or certainly years ago. To, you know, I can envision some matches with The Undertaker, or even more matches with Triple H. So it's nice that he is getting this run in the twilight of his career. And look, just look at the reaction. I mean, he's still definitely over as far as the fans are concerned.
On your downtime, man, I don't even know if you do have downtime. I'm thankful that you have agreed to come on the show today, Robert. But what do you watch on the WWE Network?
I watch a lot of the older stuff. I like their original programming. I love the countdown shows, the list, and then the countdown before that. I also like their profiles of other superstars, Edge, and Macho Man Randy Savage. I also love NXT. I mean, I think NXT is in a lot of ways consistently better than Raw or SmackDown. Now, it's sort of an unfair comparison because Raw, they have to fill 3 hours. SmackDown, they have to fill 2.
Yeah.
NXT, I mean, they only have to fill 1. So I think that in some respects makes your job easier. But I definitely enjoy seeing all the up-and-comers.
I totally agree with you with the NXT part. Also, the fact that WWE has their license to do whatever they want with the network since it's their network, and the commercial breaks are not as long as it would be on a typical Universal channel. So I see where you're coming from with that. Speaking of NXT, what was your thoughts on NXT TakeOver this past Saturday?
I thought it was great. I loved it. I thought the Divas match between Bayley and Sasha Banks, I thought that was the best match of the night, bar none. It just speaks to just the talent and the depth I mean, part of the they have a good. It's sort of a double-edged sword. There's so much talent there at NXT. It's great to showcase them, but now I guess the only downside is, and it's a good problem to have, is where do you put them?
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so much room on the quote-unquote main roster, but there is this Triple H and all his associates should be applauded for what they've done with the NXT program.
We see Jonathan Coachman make his return this weekend. Great coverage, of course. It's kind of cool seeing wrestling event getting that type of airtime on SportsCenter. As the relationship gets a little bit closer with ESPN and WWE, do you think there would be avenues down the road of maybe like WWE centered podcasts or TV shows down the road, or you think it's more like short SportsCenter segments?
I think it just depends on what the circumstances are.
Mm-hmm.
Is it ever going to be a time where we show highlights from Raw or SmackDown or even Impact Wrestling on a nightly basis? No, I don't think so. At least not right now. But I think whenever there's opportunities to expand. You mentioned the relationship between the two companies, and whenever it makes sense, I think that's something that we'll see again. At least I hope so. I mean, selfishly as a fan, I would love to see it, and I also think it makes good business sense. I mean, the WWE is the best, at least right now, they're one of the best at attracting that 18 to 34 demo, which is the demo that we want, which is a demo that we're pretty good at reaching at as well. Mm-hmm. But if we can film, if we can film, or if we can continue to expand that relationship and get even better, then I think it makes sense.
Let's talk a little bit about football, and got your show Fantasy Football Now. Is Matt Forte a high draft pick in your opinion when it comes to running backs?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think he is. I think he's right on that bottom. If you're going to talk first-tier running backs, I'm talking Le'Veon Bell, Marshawn Lynch, Jamal Charles. I think he's in that conversation, just not right at the top. The offense there, I mean, look, it all starts with Jay Cutler. We all know that.
Yeah.
So I definitely have. I want to know more on what's going on with Alshon Jeffrey. Mm-hmm. I think Donald Royal is going to be a target monster when you look at, especially in those PPR formats. So I think he could be a sneaky play. And once you get into daily leagues, he could be a guy that you get for relatively cheaply. So I think that Forte is going to continue to do what he does, provided he's healthy. But I just want to see more of what this offense is going to look like. It really is tough to make any sort of determination in preseason because there's so much that's a variable that's involved in the evaluation process.
We've seen Kevin White have issues with his chin, and then Marquise Wilson also went down with a hamstring injury in that game against the Colts this past Saturday. With the Bears kind of lack injury depth with the receiver position, would they be interested in Wes Welker since he has experience with Adam Gase?
Yeah, that's an interesting name. I mean, Welker brings a ton of experience. He's been there. He's been successful and a quality performer in this league, but there's the age and the injury factor that you bring in that you also have to bring in and mention with Wes Welker. So if the familiarity with the offense is certainly a big plus, but if you're going to do that and go down that road, you better make sure that he's right as far as the concussions and things of that nature. So you just need to make sure that he's right.
A lot of the big topics I'm seeing in the news outlets, obviously, a lot of the big injuries that are happening. Jordy Nelson, Marquise Pouncey, and then Orlando Scandrick, I found out last night while I was getting ready for the show today. Do you think the NFL should shorten the preseason, in your personal opinion, or you think it's fine the way it is right now?
Well, I think something needs to be done. It seems to me that there's a smarter, more effective way to evaluate talent.
Yeah.
Now, the Skandrick injury happened in practice, I believe. Pouncey, along with Jordy Nelson, were injured in that Sunday game between the Packers and the Steelers. But remember, years ago, and I was talking with Ron Jaworski about this, I mean, years ago, they had, I think, 6 preseason games. So, I mean, that is ridiculous. And I think we're going to look back 10, 15 years from now and say, boy, they had 4 preseason games? What were they thinking? So I think there is going to be a time where something is done. I know football is a contact sport. There are injuries. So I think there seems to me that there has to be a smarter way.
The NFL draft came to Chicago this year and announced they're coming back again next year. As these big events are actually coming back to the city now, do you think somewhere down the road maybe a show like WrestleMania would come back here, or would the Chicago would need a stadium with a roof over it to make it happen?
That's a good point. I mean, WrestleMania typically happens in early April. I've never been to Chicago, but I get the feeling that it's still pretty nippy. That time of year in that great city, but I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, there's the United Center is certainly a fabulous venue, but you're right. I mean, you look at the recent trend. WrestleMania has been going to the larger football stadiums, larger outdoor venues. So that would seem to me to make it difficult for Chicago to be eligible. But who knows? I mean, maybe there is something that they can do to, maybe they have it earlier in the day, and maybe that. The way the weather is, it's just so unpredictable, and it seems to me that you take a big risk, and it's a big gamble to kind of put your product on there with no idea what the weather is going to be doing.
We're talking to Robert Flores from SportsCenter and Fantasy Football Now here on the Pro Wrestling Experience on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. Let's get back to wrestling. A couple more things before I let you go, Robert. Who would you like to see inducted in this year's Hall of Fame class?
That's a very good question. That's a very, very good question. Let's see. Man, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. Who am I missing? Who would be? I know it's going to be a while before CM Punk is inducted.
Ivan Koloff?
Yeah, I can't think of anyone.
I'd say maybe the Freebirds. I would hope so. I mean, they're in Dallas this time. So
yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah,
it would be a little bit ironic because the Freebirds were among the most despised heels in that territory back when they had those great feuds with the Von Erichs. But I think they definitely are worthy of being inducted into the Hall of Fame. So yeah, that's a very good call.
Yeah, I think other ones, maybe like Bruce Prichard, maybe not for Brother Love, but obviously his work with the company, and of course he was from Texas as well. And then maybe Luger, but that's maybe going out there. I don't think that one would happen.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I think China at some point deserves to be inducted, and I know she's had her problems, and she's been in a line of work that is certainly controversial and goes against what is now the WWE family-friendly thing. But you can't dispute what she did in the ring as a performer, and also being the first female intercontinental champion. I think at some point she should be in there.
One last thing, buddy. So, last question. Do you think John Cena eventually breaks Ric Flair's record, and how will your reaction will be as a old school wrestling fan when Cena does break Flair's record?
I think he will, and the reaction will be, it won't be good. But hey, records are made to be broken.
Absolutely.
And in this business especially, there is a sense of, doing the deed, and doing the job, putting the young folks over at your expense. I mean, that's the way the business is built. So I don't think the reaction will be generally positive from wrestling fans, but that's just the way the business is, and that's the way the world is. I mean, you fondly remember those that came before you, but at some point, and the wrestlers will tell you this themselves, at some point you have to step back into the shadows and let the younger generation shine.
Make sure to follow Robert Flores on Twitter at RoFlow ESPN and check him out on SportsCenter and Fantasy Football Now on ESPN2. Robert, this was an honor, man. You were one of my favorite SportsCenter anchors. I look up to you, and this was a blast game to talk a little wrestling, and I'd love to do it again.
Yeah, hey, thanks a lot for having me, and I appreciate the kind words. Thank you.